Welcome to another episode of Motivated Masculine Men. We are here today, and we always talk about how we can. The purpose of the podcast is to inspire, educate, and challenge men to embrace their healthy masculinity, deepen their relationships, optimize their health, and step boldly into their purpose. Today, we have Denny LaVe. I think I said that right. Denny LaVe?
LaVe.
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 We talked about this just before as well. Like I said before we started, Denny, it is raw, it is real. So
Okay.
before I botch anything else, Denny, why don't you take it away? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know we're going to talk about a lot of different cool things. I'm excited to talk about you running for Senate in Idaho as well, because hell, this is you don't get everyday opportunities to talk to somebody who's running for Senate, or at least I haven't had these opportunities. So I'm looking forward to that and how the masculine touch is in there because we talk about masculinity here.
Well,
Uh, so I
100% is in there.
I'm looking forward to hearing why you reached out to me when it comes to that. But tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and if somebody doesn't know anything about you, the key kind of I guess highlights.
Yeah. So I was born in Billings, Montana in 1976, right? And if you've never been to Billings, there are some beautiful surroundings to Billings, but Billings is a fun place and a good place to be far away from. Um, it's a refinery town. We grew up on the south side. The little bit of time that I was there as a kid, we were on the south side, down by the refineries. It's just it's okay, right? And then really sadly, common American childhood of broken family, traveling all over the place, custody stuff back and forth, being a pawn in the relationship, and then you get out of, you go through high school, you maybe go to college, and there's a lot of turbulence that happens because you don't understand all the psychological damage that you're carrying with you that you haven't healed yet because you didn't know you had it.
Yep.
You just acted, right? And um, that ended up leading me into a monastery over in France. I spent 2 years in a monastery in France and was all in, was committed. I'm like, I want to take my vows, and they said, "That's nice, but we think you should go home and have a family."
Hey, at least they were
Okay,
honest.
yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, it's if that's what God wants, then awesome. Let's go back. So I went back, went to work. I can honestly say that it was kind of love at first sight. Like I saw who is now my wife, and I was like, that's the one. That's the
Yeah.
one. She's gonna be a good mom. I can tell from her family, she's gonna be like her mom. She's gonna be a good woman. I and you'll laugh, and your listeners will laugh. Like before we were even dating, I went out and bought the diamond for the ring, right? And started paying off the diamond, getting ready for, I know that this is gonna work. I know this is gonna come together. I know she's gonna say yes. I want to make sure I'm doing this right and I have the right stone and the right ring. And, um,
Wow. Hey,
there was an element of faith there. And now,
it's funny.
23 years
It's funny.
later,
It's funny you say that. My great grandma and grandpa and great grandfather was not exactly the same, but very similar. He was sitting in a diner and was like, "I'm gonna marry her." They
yeah,
were happily married until he passed away at like 90.
yeah. And I think part of that is just deciding that you're going to make this work
Yeah.
is a big thing, and ending up with someone who also has this belief system of, that it's a commitment that
Mm,
you don't get to break,
no.
right? Like you made a vow, like, and it actually meant something. And
Mhm.
that doesn't mean it's easy,
No.
but it's very rewarding. We have six sons, um, and they're just amazing young men. And when we talk about you know positive and healthy masculinity, like as a man, that's really something to be proud of. Is that you have
Mm,
children, and that your children make you proud,
mm.
right? Like that's that's a huge thing. So anyhow, fast forward 23 years of marriage and the kids, and here we are running for Senate.
So what'd you
So
do? I'm curious because I want to know. What'd you do career wise? What was the career through those all those years from the monastery till now running for Senate?
so my primary career has been as an ironworker. Um, I grew up, my dad's an iron worker. He's been a union iron worker for 50 years. I grew up going, I'm never going to be an iron worker. I'm never going to be an iron worker.
Funny how it works, eh?
And it's one of those funny things. Yeah, you know, you want to make God laugh. You just tell him your plans
Mm,
and see how it goes. But you know, it seems like I graduated high school and things were a train wreck at home. I wanted to save some money to go to college because I had a scholarship, but I needed some money to cover expenses, food, and that sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, I can work at Fred Meyer's, which is like a local, you know, grocery store, home goods store, right? And I can work there and make $7 an hour for the rest of the summer, or I can go work as an iron worker and make 12, right? Which neither of those sounds that exciting these days, but you
hey,
know, to almost double your wages
exactly.
is
I mean,
exciting,
that's a
right?
big deal. It's a big deal.
And it was so I did that for the summer. I went to college. There was a bit of a train wreck. Um, you know, and again, you don't realize how much family support is baked into society when you're
Mm,
young,
hmm.
right? Like in America, um, if you want any type of financial aid, even if it's just to take a student loan out, you need to file a FAFSA, right? The Federal Application for Financial Student Aid document,
Yeah.
which you can't fill that out unless your parents fill out their part of it, right? Well, you know, if you come from a pretty tumultuous background and at that point in time, like, um, you know, for a variety of circumstances, my dad went on, like, I graduated from high school and my dad went on a runner for 3 months, right? It's crazy. Like,
Yep.
and that caused some stress at home, right? My mom was like, I need you to pay the bills. And I'm like, I don't have any money. And she's like, well, get out,
Yep.
right? And
Mm,
all of a sudden the university's saying, well, we can help you, but you need your parents to fill out this form for you. And I'm like, yeah, that's not even real. Like,
yeah, that's not gonna happen. That's just not
that's
gonna
not
happen.
happening. So next.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I went to the monastery, came back. I ended up back in ironworking. And eventually ended up starting a company in ironworking. So for the last 18 years, my dad and I have had our own company. And baked into that is like my dad and I have our own company, right? But somehow
I was gonna.
we
I'm glad you
handle
take
and
that.
reconcile, um, right? Because there's a lot packed in there.
Yeah.
And but we've had a company for 18 years. It's been a good company. It is a good company. We're looking to hand it off, you know, to pass it to the next generation. I mean, clearly, I won't have time if I'm successful in my campaign to run a company. He's 73 and would like to fully retire and
Yeah.
you know spend more time at his various places he likes to be and be at peace with God.
Yeah.
It's been a pretty wild ride to get to here.
So how long you been in Idaho for?
26 years.
Wow. Wow. I have to say, we mentioned this before we hit record. I've been to Idaho. When was that? That would have been 20, probably about the time you got there. I went there as a kid. I had my grandma's what was it? Her uncle, her one of her family members. So one of my family members lived there in Boise. So we went up
Okay.
there. She drove us up there from Redding, California. I got to go past all the buffalo and everything as you drive up there and that and I remember snippets of it, but I do remember how beautiful Idaho is. It is a
Yeah,
gorgeous
it is.
state.
It is.
So I just
And
want to
you
say
know,
that.
my house is about 400 miles or 7 hours north of Boise.
Oh, so you get even more snow up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's even more beautiful up there.
It is.
Nah,
It is incredibly beautiful.
so Denny, I'm curious. Obviously, you're on here. We're talking about masculinity, which is what we kind of have an undertone of everything we talk about. What have you learned? I guess I want to go back. What did you learn from the monastery about your masculinity, if anything? Or did it even play a part? Or with like reflecting back on it, do you see it how it set you up for your future as a man and what you do now as an iron? I mean, let's get real. That's a pretty masculine role as well. Um, from what I know, I don't know much about
Yeah, no,
that,
it totally is.
but
I mean, those are both very masculine things to do, right? I think really the core essential thing from a masculine perspective is that the monastic life is very much about sacrifice and self-denial, right? It's a dedicated school of putting yourself in last place for the good of others and the good of the community,
Mm.
right? And
Do you agree with
there's
that?
I do. I do. Like I think that we are meant to be at the service of others. That doesn't mean we're there to be a doormat,
Yeah.
right? There's like it's not well just because I serve others and I exist for to help the community doesn't mean I allow the community to walk all over me and like that's not it at all.
Yeah.
Um, but we're not like again, I'm a deeply religious and spiritual person. I don't believe that God created us for us simply to fulfill our own whims and desires and passions,
Mm.
right? And people that put themselves at the service of their desires and their passions tend to be very unhappy people.
Mm.
They tend to be very deeply unhappy people. And so, when I look back at the monastery, I go, that was one of the happiest periods of my life. Like I was there, your schedule is set for you. You you have instructions on what you need to do and where you need to go. Um, you spend a ton of time communing and connecting with God, uh, and I deeply believe that when we die, that there's the four last things, right? There's death, judgment, heaven, and hell, right? And you know, going through the agony of death, I haven't fully gone through it, but I've been really close several times,
Mm.
and it's like, okay, that's legit, that's for real, and I held people in my arms as they died. I've prayed over people dying, family members. Um, our families buried people with our own hands, like literally with our own hands and shovels, put the dirt over their bodies. Um, like we're very intimately connected with death. It's part of the human experience, and but we also are very accepting of that. After that death comes judgment, and that we will be held accountable.
Mm.
Uh, each and every one of us for how we lived our lives and how we responded to the graces that we were given and the treasures that we were given, and then there's the heaven or hell, right? And that we're created to be in heaven, to be eternally in this eternal act of love with God. And our day-to-day actions should be leading us towards that eternal union with him. And so again, you're in the monastery, you're living this life that is clearly pushing you this direction, right? Like it's almost like being on autopilot. Yes, you have
Yeah.
to do your part, but like you're on the path, and as long as you stay on the path, you're probably going to get there.
Yep.
Whereas, we come out here and, I mean, take your modern city. I mean, you could worship food and fill your belly to your heart's content. You could worship other pleasures and go to strip clubs and other terrible places. You can go to gambling halls and gambling dens. Like, you can worship sports. There's all these ways that we can get off the path very
Yeah.
easily in the modern world, right? And the reality is I'm running for Senate, and I realize a lot of the people that are in politics, like their idol is power and honor, and those are also false gods,
I was
right?
just talking with my wife about this last night. We were just talking about like with everything going on at the time of recording this, you're seeing it more and more. And it's yeah, it's for me, I don't think that that's the true masculine thing to do. You're not hunting for power. For me, I believe a true masculine guy is all about contribution, as you said, sacrifice. You're not sacrificing yourself, but you do put yourself second to provide. My three P's are provide, protect, and preside. And so, yes, we have to do that for ourselves as well. And there's times where you have to push people away and go, no, 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 this is too much. But then there is majority of the time you do like when I walk around with my wife, I will sacrifice myself to save her. It does not matter what it is. That's my belief. That's my personal belief and my masculinity. And again, I did a role in law enforcement. I was Secret Service here in New Zealand, pretty much. my role was to sacrifice myself for others. I was a cop for 7.5 years, sacrifice for others. It's that masculine thing. So yeah, it is. And we have out here when you're not in the like you were saying with the monastery, you have your set routine. You are being guided towards, you see it in university. It's it can be very similar as well. Or if you're in, like when I was police training, same thing. When you're at academy, you're going towards being a cop. If you screw it up, you can get kicked out and ejected out, but you're going towards this role to be focused on. I'm curious though, from that lens of masculinity and that, how did it affect you as a man not going, like, not being, I guess, being told, as you said, being told, now you should go have a family?
Well, it had come at the end of a period of time where, like, my first 3 months there at the monastery, there's a lot of culture shock.
Mm.
There's a language barrier, right? I didn't speak French before I went over there. Um, so I was learning French by immersion, right?
Best way.
Monasteries they're historically known for having silence, right?
Yep.
And then when the monastery says, well, in our brief periods where we can talk to each other during the day, you can only speak French. It made for some challenging times, right? And so I'd be lying if I said, like, I wasn't a little distraught after several months of this.
Mm.
And I sat with myself at one night and I was just like, you know what? Like, you committed yourself to this. You said you were going to do it, and you're not going to quit.
Mm.
And I took a little private vow. I said, God, I am not leaving here unless you tell me that's what you want. And that will come from the superiors. That's the ordinary way that God communicates to us, is through our superiors that he places over us. And so, fast forward a year and a half later, like, I had taken the habit. I mean, the whole thing, right? Top of the head shave with a nice ring of hair, wearing a big long white robe, right? Like, I was all in. And we were going through, some preparations towards vows. And I was just like, yeah, I'm in. And so when they came back and said, no, we think you should go home and have a family, it was like, okay, God, this is you speaking, saying this is what you
Mm.
want. So, I mean, I'd be lying if I said too there wasn't a little consternation there, but there's also okay, but now I have to align myself with what God wants
Yeah.
versus what I want, right? And I think that's every man's dilemma,
Yeah.
right? Is to create the space to hear his voice and hear what he wants in your life, and then to commit to doing it, right? And again, the modern world is very, very good at creating a lot of noise,
Mm.
which it's very hard to hear the word speaking to you when you're surrounded by noise.
Mm.
Um, but then when you do hear, what do you do, right?
Mm.
And I've had periods in my life where I didn't listen, where I was like, yeah,
I
I
think
know
we
you
all
want
have
me to
had
go
those, haven't
here.
we?
Yeah, and they don't end well, right? They're not fun at the end of the day. They might have
No.
some enjoyable moments, but at the end of the day, they're very painful experiences, and those scars can last a long time. Um,
Mm.
and it's not to say that simply saying yes to God and following the direction He wants you to go is going to be this pain-free, blissful experience, because that's not real either,
Mm.
right? And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Christianity, right? Is you see God the Father presenting this. I don't know if nurturing is the right word, but like, he's giving evidence that he's caring for us and that he actually wants to take care of us and provide for us and wants us to be with him, wants us to be
Yes.
his children. And then he sends his son, and we have this example of this man who works quietly and tirelessly for his family for 30 years, right? Well, not 30, because I mean he did have a childhood, but let's just say 20 years, right? He worked with his family and he helped support his family and was a contributing, virtuous member of society, right? And then he goes on his public mission, and he completely dedicates his life to the service of his people and to saving his people, even to the point of when they put him to death, he's doing it to save his people.
Mm.
right? And he's giving us this perfect example to follow of, you know what, you might just be called to work and to just put your head down and do the small thing you're asked to do and be a normal contributing member of society. And you might be called to make some bigger sacrifice. But when you know that someone better than you has paved the way and voluntarily did it, it makes it a lot easier for you to say yes as well.
Mm.
And go, I'm not better than him.
It's funny. I've just while you were saying that, I'm not full transparent. I'm not a religious guy. I believe that there's something out there that's bigger than us. I'd say I'm spiritual, but I'm not. I'm not, religious, Catholic, Christian, or anything like that. I've been bouts in it in the past, and times of that I've felt, or like I've got friends that are Catholics and Christians, and gone to church with them and stuff through sections. But the reason I say that is while you were saying that, I had this thing of like I guess you could call it a bit of an epiphany, and I just want to share it with you because that's why we're here. We're having a conversation. It is the story of man, and I've never realized it. And I've people have said it multiple times, so I want to thank you, Denny, for I don't know what it was, just the way you said it. It is society. It is the way that we should be living our lives, where it's not all about, it's not that significance driven side, it's that contribution driven side. And I always strive to live from that contribution, struggle at times to, not I fall down that significance path, which I guess in Christianity is that sinning kind of pathway. Um, but it's so true. And like, as you're going into to bring it to relevant to where you're going in that public servant service sector going for Senate, that is what we should be. Me as a cop, I had this epiphany. I was like, you as a police officer, when I was a police officer, that is what you are. You're almost living that pathway of Christ when he starts to just go on his journey because you are paid like shit. People hate you. Like, if I'm real about it, I mean, you know it. You probably are in the sector where you're going into. You'll be aware of it. Law enforcement are just shat on all the time. Yes, there is good parts of it, and it is necessary, and I love every officer that's out there. Same as military, but any first responder. But you are on that. You have to be that selfless person because you're never going to get paid enough. You're never going to be cherished enough. You're never going to get the results that you want, but you have to stay focused on that. When you get lost real hard. And it just all clicked with me of I get it now. I get the following God and the that sides of things. Not to say that I'm now going to go to church and all of that, but I understand the spiritual side of it all of oh, yes, this is what the Bible sets out. And I don't know what it was, Denny. I just want to praise you for the way that you said it. It just clicked for me. So thank you for that. It clicked I've always been like, I don't get this. I've watched the stories, I've heard the sermons, but I just don't. Okay, cool. But the way that you portrayed it, and I think it was because you said he was a working class man, then he got called to do this. And I was like, oh, I was working. I got called to be a law enforcement. I did that, but I fell onto the pathways that were not of that. And so in turn, I hit rock bottom and went through my journey. And now I'm back into, in a way, I run the podcast on top of working full time. And this is my journey of contribution.
Yeah, that's what we're called to do. It's funny. St. Paul. No, nobody wants to talk about this, right? Or most people, especially most Christians, they don't want to talk about this. But St. Paul has a verse, and I don't remember exactly what book and chapter it is, but he says, we have to make up what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ,
Mm,
right? Like anybody that sits with that, it's a really uncomfortable thing to think
mm.
about, right? Like, what do you mean? I'm going to worship God and who's got all goodness and all blessings, and I have to make up some suffering. Like I have to contribute some suffering. I don't want to suffer. Suffering sucks.
It does. It's not called suffering for no reason.
And yet, like that's the essence of of the truth of our
Mm.
situation, and there's a lot of things that I've pondered on and kind of come to conclusions that we get wrong in modern society or we miss, right? Like you look at humility, humility is not this crazy self-abnegation and self-deprecation and I'm a piece of crap and like that's not humility.
No.
Like humility is recognizing that you have strengths and you have weaknesses, that some things about you are pleasant and some are unpleasant, and then living from that reality. And it's accepting the reality of the world around us. There are good things and bad things. There are pleasant things and unpleasant things, and living in reality, and our modern world doesn't want to accept that there's any realities. It's all mental constructs and it's all, gender is a construct and oh, we could be living in a simulation. And it's like, well, those are all ways of going, look, there's no accountability, there's no judgment,
Yeah.
there's no discernment, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or evil. And and in our hearts we know that's not true. Like we know what murder is.
Yeah.
We know that murder's wrong. Like it inherently instinctively repulses us when somebody murders someone else.
Yeah.
But we also know that like, oh, if we're engaged in violence to protect our family and someone gets killed, that's not murder. So we
Mm.
we we have this natural capacity to make these judgments, but we don't like to because there's consequences if we admit that we can make these judgments about actions. And again, I'm not
Mm.
saying judge people. I'm saying judging actions.
Actions, yeah.
Like
Because
we value.
you are the sum of your actions. At the end of the day, you're the sum of your actions.
I think you're more than your actions.
What I mean is people portray you as the sum of your actions. They see you
Yes.
as the sum of your actions. You are more than that, but people see the sum of your actions. And if you can recognize that, then you can change your actions and you can be
Correct.
that different person. I've done things in my past that I'm not proud of. I'm grateful for them because they've gotten me to where I am, but I made the choice of changing them. I made the choice to take actions that are different to them. I live differently to that person that I was back then because of learning and growth and that. But somebody who knew me back then will have a completely different view of me than somebody who knows me now if that person back then doesn't ha wasn't hasn't been along for the journey or to see the change and those different actions.
Yeah. I think another concept that we miss is meekness, right? Like the Christian concept of meekness is not this concept of some weak, spineless person cowering in a corner,
Mm.
right? It's actually quite the opposite. It's someone who understands their strength and their power and voluntarily, of their own free will, contains it so that they can be in society, so that they can
Mm.
be in relationship with other people.
Mm.
But that power and that ability to unleash it is still there.
Well, it's the true warrior. The true warrior is not somebody who goes and looks for a fight. The true warrior is the person who knows that they can handle a fight but doesn't look for it. They will use force, they will use violence when they need to, but they don't go looking to use it. It's the whole thing. I remember when I was a kid and my dad got me into karate. And there's lots of different views, especially nowadays, on doing martial arts and these different things. But I remember the whole core of the martial arts and the whole core of why my dad had me doing it, and he would do it with me, or he was into it even before I was when he was younger, he was into it, was around the structure and around the word's missing to me. It was around knowing that you're capable but not using it. So it was like you're not the bully, but you can deal with the bully.
Mm-hmm.
And remember as a kid, my brother was getting bullied, and I remember seeing it, and it's part of the reason why I became a cop. I don't like bullies. I want everybody to, to be friends as such. I know we can't all be friends, but I want everybody to be. And so I remember my brother was getting bullied, and I went over and I was like, I pinned this kid up against a fence. I was a lot bigger than him because my brother's a couple years younger than me. Pinned him against the thing. I was like, "You leave my brother alone, or else." Next thing, they ended up becoming friends. That later that year, like it completely changed the dynamic of it. But it was like I'm. Sometimes you have to use that force, not over force, but it's that whole like. standing up to somebody because you know that you're capable. And it is. It's not about the meekness isn't about being weak. It's about using your strengths when they're necessary, not just because you have them.
Yeah. No, and that's an important thing, that concept, right? And to go back and like, when you look at Christ, and he said, "Learn of me because I'm meek and humble of heart."
Hmm.
And today we read that and we go, "Oh, he's he's a wuss, just cowered in the corner," and you know, well, no, that's not at all what he was saying.
Yeah.
Saying, "Learn from me, like I am all powerful and I could solve this problem with a snap of my fingers, and I choose not to."
Because I know that you need, and it's like that whole thing of, I remember my mom saying one time, I can tell you what to do, but if I, it's like that whole like, you teach a fisherman to fish versus giving him the fish. It was that whole like, my mom recognized at one stage, I need to allow you and your brother, my brother, to make your mistakes and not try and keep you safe. You've got to go out and you got to make your own mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's a journey as a parent in its own is not, and as a man as well, we want to
Yeah.
protect those that we care and love about, but sometimes we actually have to let them go through some pain and then be like, okay, cool. Like, do you see what happened there? Like, this is where you could have been, and then that's that coach and guidance. I do want to Denny, you mentioned about obviously you're running for Senate. You mentioned around the kind of power side of things. I want to ask, what is it that, you could, it's just like any public servant, you could carry on with your business, you could retire, you could have time with your six kids, with your family. Instead, you're deciding to go into Senate, which this day and age, from what I see from this side of the world, and from those that I talk to in the US, I don't know how, yeah, going into that can be its own challenge and journey, which I'm sure you're aware of. What's what's made you make this decision? Like, why go for it? Why put yourself on the chopping block as such?
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment, right? And the answer comes down to something I said earlier. It's like if you create the space to listen to God and he tells you to do something, then
Mhm.
you have a choice. Right? And in my case, this came up about 18 years ago. And I was listening to a politician who claimed to share the same faith as I did, but had clearly sold out, was clearly pushing policies that absolutely violated our core beliefs.
Mm.
And I thought, man, this guy's not smarter than me. He's not better than me. Like I could do this. And I talked to my mentors at the time, and they said, look, not right now, but if it's what God wants for you, He'll let you know.
Mm.
Just raise your family, run your business. It's not the time. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like I get it. Fast forward to 2024, and I was turning my company over to my management team, which was part of my plan going into the business. And at the end of the year, we like to do our year-end planning or our planning for the next year around the beginning of December, right?
Yeah.
So that we're not getting to January 1st and then we're flat-footed going, golly, we don't know what to do. And the next thing you know, it's February and you just lost a month
Yep.
of your year, right? So we, I'm spending a lot of time in prayer. I had the time and I was like, God, what do you want me to do? I'm going to have a lot of time. My management team is good. They're going to be taking care of business. Like, do you want me to golf? Do you want me to sail? Do you want me to start another business? Like, what do you want? And I was praying and praying, and a couple weeks into this prayer of just really imploring for guidance, he's like, "Okay, it's time to run for Senate." And I was like, "Well, time out,
Wait a second. Wait a
time
second.
out,
That was 18
hold
years
on."
ago.
I got, if this is really what you want, um, if this is really what you want, then like I need you to send somebody from the outside to tell me that this is what you want. Send one of my mentors, have them tell me because it's a big deal. Like this is a
Yeah.
huge responsibility. It's a huge weight. It's a huge sacrifice. Um, the reality is in our prayer lives, like our ego can get in the way, and we
Mm.
can we can imagine that it's God talking to us and telling us to do something, but it's often just our ego saying, go do what you want to do. So, like God, I really need you to send somebody to confirm this if this is you, and if it's not, it's okay. But Anyhow, 3 days later, one of my mentors came up to me just out of the blue after church on a Sunday and said, "Hey, are you still thinking about that?" Like, yeah. Like, oh, well, now's the time to do it. And like I had laid out several conditions, and all of those conditions were right there. And I was
Wow.
like, "Oh, okay, God,
Can't fight that one.
that's that's what you want, then that's what we'll do." And it's been kind of a wild ride, of going, okay, I know how to run a successful business. I'm very good at learning things,
Hmm.
whether it's physical skills, whether it's business skills, I'm very good at acquiring knowledge and skills. Um, okay, I guess we'll acquire the skill of how to run a campaign and how to build a team that runs a campaign and how to plan this all out. And it's been some interesting stuff. I mean, you run a poll and the sitting senator reaches out to you through the channels and says, "Hey, by the way, would you come meet me in DC because I want to talk to you about this campaign thing you're thinking about?"
Hmm.
Like, that's kind of wild,
Yeah, that is.
right? That's kind of like, and then come to find out, okay, that's actually a thing. Like they do that sort of thing,
Yeah.
um, for various reasons. And so I said, yeah, okay, I'll go. And went to DC and met with him, and it was kind of a bully session of, here's me with Trump, and Trump's got my back, and you're gonna lose, and so you can try, and I encourage you to try, but you're gonna lose because Trump's got my back. And oh, by the way, did I mention that Trump's got my back?
Which which
Okay.
which in all honesty, I do know it is in politics, it is a massive, if you have the sitting president's backing, it becomes a bit of a, but at the same time, it just, I don't know. From the short talk we've had, you take it as a cool and like chalk it up to one more tick that we just carry on.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, it's like that's nice. I mean, I talked to people about it and I said, look, Trump's a great guy. I appreciate he's doing a lot of good things for the country. And I think at some level he's doing it because he really wants to help the country,
Yeah,
right?
I would agree with
I,
that.
I believe that. Do I agree with everything he's doing? No. Do I think he's perfect? No. Um, so when it comes to the endorsement and him having, Jim's back, it's like, well, okay, but he's not God. He's not infallible.
Mm.
And he has a pretty remarkable track record for making bad decisions of backing people.
Yeah, there is
So,
that, and
you
he
know,
even admitted that on the Joe Rogan podcast before the election around his last presidency, that he selected the wrong people to put around him.
yeah. So it's one of those where I look at it and it's not, it doesn't deter me because the reality, like when I look at it from a political expedience standpoint, right? Like why, last March when he made the endorsement, why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He needed a bunch of votes for a bunch of critical pieces of legislation. And if there was an uncontested race in a state that is pretty solidly Republican, why not endorse the sitting senator and just secure that vote?
Yep. Yep. So I'm
Okay.
gonna ask because I don't, and again for viewers that aren't, or well, just for myself, more importantly, are you running as Democrat, Republican? Like, I do know the parties, but I don't know all the senators and stuff
I'm
like
running
that.
as a Republican,
Republican,
right?
cool.
I'm running
Okay,
as a
so
Republican. So
and sitting is the current sitting is Republican, Democrat.
he's Republican. So
Okay,
we have a primary challenge coming up in like 2 months.
yeah,
And um, I feel reasonably confident. The guy's 83. Um,
yeah,
I think Americans have kind of had their fill of octogenarians in office.
yeah.
I mean, and again, it's not partisan. It doesn't mean he can't do a good job, but the
Gets to a
likelihood of him
stage.
continuing, right? We all know it.
There gets to a
It's
stage. I
just,
mean, we're not gonna live forever. Let's just get real. And as you get older, and nothing against, again, I don't know him, so I'm kind of speaking out of turn, but just in general, as you get older, regardless of who you are and what you're doing, yes, when you're learning more on that, you cognitively, there's statistics that show that you are better off than when you're not. But at the same time, it's age. Things are degenerating naturally, all of us as we grow older. Synapses in our brains don't click like they used to.
right.
Some worse than others. Okay, cool.
Some worse
So
than others.
I'm gonna ask this straight out because I'm a straight, direct guy. If you haven't figured out already, Denny, uh, why you and not him? in your personal opinion?
Well, they should vote for me because I'm not 83.
Oh, there you go. There's the straight direct answer. I love it.
Straight back at you. Uh, the I think it really comes down to at a certain level, experience becomes a detriment rather than an asset, right? And there's a lot of research that proves this out that if you're the longer you're in a given field or in a given industry, the less likely it is that you're able to come up with a creative solution to a problem,
Yes, agree.
right? Um, and there's volumes of research on that. So when I look at my opponent and I go, okay, he was first elected to public office in 1970, right? And then I was born 6 years later, and he's been in public office more or less the entire time. There's chances are, like, if he was going to create some magic solutions and solve some problems, he would have done it by now.
Yeah.
And he's not. He hasn't created a lot of solutions. He's simply there to vote the party line. And
Question, Denny, on that is so I'm just getting clear. There's a term for, is there a term, maximum term for senators? I can't remember. I might no. So you can keep, so how long has he been in, has he been senator in Idaho?
18 years.
Okay, yeah. I can see.
Yeah. And then before that, he was the lieutenant governor, and then the governor, and then the lieutenant governor, and then he was, in the state legislature for something like 30 years. Like,
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what is it that you mentioned earlier around the kind of the masculine thing does kind of play a little bit, or you insinuated a little bit that it does play a little bit of a part with you running and what you're standing for, which I do want to go into in a minute on what you are standing for because I believe that, I might not have a huge reach in Idaho, but for those that I do, I think that we should get your messaging out. Hell, if I don't care who wants to come on, we'll get messaging out. I don't live in Idaho, so I have no standing here. Um,
yeah, but
no,
but 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 in a certain way, you do, right? Like
yes,
one of the things that I have that I really believe strongly in is the for the last 70 years, a lot of people in America have tried to play God around the world,
yeah,
and I don't think it's made the world safer for America. And I don't know that it's made it that much better. We've installed regimes and they've fallen or they've gotten corrupt.
mm,
And more importantly, like I don't know that it's a good use of our treasure and of our sons and daughters to go send them to fight wars
mm,
on foreign countries to overthrow regimes. Like there's a lot of correlation between the Western philosophical and religious traditions that led to the representative republics that we have today in a lot of parts of the world.
yeah,
And there is a strong correlation to that philosophical underpinning and the success of that type of government.
mm,
Uh, I think there's something to it that when we've installed or helped put in place representative republics and democracies in other places in the world, they have a hard time succeeding, right? And there is a cultural component to it. Um,
definitely.
and so like when you say, "Hey, you don't have a stake in it," right?
I
Like
see what
my
you mean. You are right. There is a stake.
like my
Yes.
my opponent is the head of the Foreign Relations Committee, right? They have a say in whether we go to war or don't go to war, right? He sits on the Intel committee, like he sees who we're spying on and the things coming down the pike, and he would have some influence on a lot of the operations that we're doing, and
Yes.
like that does have impact around the world.
Well, you see
Um,
what's going on right now with the Iran war. It's massive impact. Our fuel prices because everybody's talking about it right now, our fuel prices have jumped crazily, and our fuel price was already crazy. Um, so
yeah.
yes. I mean, okay. Well, what is it that you're standing on then? Like, what is it that for you running, what is it
So
that
some of
you're
my
standing
some
on?
of my one of my key platform points is on this reckless spending that America's been doing
Hmm.
for the last 20 years, right? 18 years ago, our America's deficit, or excuse me, our sorry, it's been a long day already. Our um, $11 trillion in debt was our national debt
Hmm.
20 years ago, and we're closing in on $40 trillion.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
And the prevailing wisdom right now in Congress, including my opponent, is that, well, there's this mandatory spending that we have to have, and then there's discretionary spending. And so, there's nothing we can do about this problem because our mandatory spending is already more than what we've taken in taxes, and we still have to do the discretionary spending,
Yeah.
right? Well, you're never going to solve the problem if you just assume that you're never going to solve the problem. Like your brain, when you've decided you can't solve a problem, your brain will stop looking for solutions because you already told it there wasn't a solution.
Yes, true.
That's just basic performance psychology and neurobiology. Like the evidence is there for that. But if you say there is a solution, well, you might start looking for one, right? And I mean, there's several anecdotes that I have that, like, in the medical field in America, there's so many layers of bureaucracy and garbage going on, and there's so much lack of transparency that, like, I recently had a company try to charge my insurance company $244 for a pill that has 6 cents of active ingredients, 4 cents of fillers to turn it into a pill, and then $1.90 to get it on the shelf at the hospital. But they want to charge $244
It's outrageous.
so that they can have room to negotiate with the insurance companies.
Yeah, it's
Well, like,
outrageous.
who's winning there? Like, it's not the patient. It's not the doctor or the nurse that spent 8 years of their life learning how to take care of other people, right? Like somewhere in between here and here, it's not the guy who made it for 6 cents. Somewhere in here is all this layers of bloat and waste and greed
Yeah.
that's just bankrupting the system. When we look over at the military side, right? We look at there was a deployment about a year ago that they wanted to do internally in the U.S. They wanted to send some Marines 90 miles north, right? And you grew up in California a little bit, so from San Diego to L.A.
Yeah.
Right? That is not that far. That's like less than 90 miles. Uh, 600 Marines, 60 days, and the cost that they said it was going to take was $158 million, which works out to $4,600 per Marine per day to go 90 miles inside the United States. Those Marines make like $100 a day.
Yeah.
Like,
It's funny you say that because I was having a conversation with some of my work colleagues yesterday on our way back from a lunch hosting, and we were talking around this, and we know people that are in the government here that are in government positions here, not at like high levels, but they work for like they're just in the office of of places, and they were talking about these people that they know, these friends of theirs have moved from a like hospitality hotel sales or corporate kind of role where efficiency is paramount. We are pushed to be efficient. We are pushed to get stuff done quickly and move on to the next one, make sales and get things done. And they're being told to slow down because otherwise our budgets will be cut in these government positions. And again, it feeds into that factor. I remember being a police officer and seeing how much my ballistic vest cost, yet my dad imports firearms and stuff into New Zealand. So I was going to SHOT Show with him and talking to these body armor companies in the US and them telling me that their body armor I can buy it personally for a quarter of the price that the police department is spending on very similar body armor. And I'm like, these aren't matching up. So I guess my question for you, Denny, is how do you solve that? Because I know in the US, and I did love American history when I was in high school. Uh, how do you solve that when it's been so intrinsically, I mean, it's not just America problem, it's a worldwide government problem, but how do you solve it or help solve it? Or what's your plan to help solve it in
I
America?
think part of it is shine a light.
Mm.
I mean, as a senator, you have a pretty big pulpit, right? People are willing to talk to senators and broadcast the message and carry the message. And when you're exposing things like that, and it's again, that's taken away from the troops.
Mm.
Like if it was $4,600 and we were paying the troops, $2,000 a day to be there, that'd be ridiculous. But at least you'd be like, well, the money's going to the troops. They're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah. At least the
they're gonna
guys who are
spend it in
actually
their
doing
local
stuff are getting
community,
something.
and
Yeah.
their wives are gonna be home taking care of the kids, and life is gonna be, things are gonna be pretty good,
Yeah.
right? It'd still be outrageous, but at least you could kind of say, I kind of get it,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, just some of the stuff that's going on that isn't getting a light shined on it at a national level. I mean, there's bases all over our country where dining facilities are collecting money from the enlisted folks, and only 30 cents of the dollar on the dollar that they collect from those folks is actually going into providing them food, and the other 70 cents on the dollar is just evaporating. Nobody knows where it went,
Yeah, that's crazy.
right? And
That's
nobody's being held
crazy.
accountable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's starting to come to light, but nobody's being held accountable.
Yeah, I know
And
like there was some stuff talked about in the early days of this presidency around like with Doge and things like that. They were shining a lot of light. And then as soon as it felt like from this side of the world, from what we're being fed on this side and what I was reading into it, watching different media outlets and stuff, is that it felt like as soon as it started to get real and people were going to start losing money out of their pockets, it was shut down.
yeah,
And the people that like, I mean, Musk getting kicked out the door, for an example. I don't know I haven't looked again. I haven't looked into what's continued to carry on with it, but it does feel like it just got shut down and was like, nah, we're not going to do this because it's pissing too many people off. So I guess how do you counteract? And I, personally, I'm interested, but I think it's also great for those that are thinking about voting for you as well. Like, how do you counteract that in there and not get to that stage? And I know, your beliefs are going to fall into it, and that I can tell you're a man who's going to keep fighting for it and not get disheartened. But what's the idea, or how do you keep moving forward because, I know from being law enforcement, you go, cool, I'm going to get into this role and I'm going to change all these things. And then everybody around you is like, nah, 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 nah. And you get all these roadblocks. What's your strategy to overcome those roadblocks, I guess, thinking about that kind of end in sight? I'm going to
great
ask you the
question.
hard questions here. I
That's a
apologize,
great
Denny.
question. Well, first off, again, it goes back to the do you believe it is possible?
Hmm.
Like, if you believe it's possible, if you
It can be
believe it
possible.
can be done, you'll free up your brain to find solutions and find resources that will help,
Hmm.
right? Um, I think it again coming from a position of faith and knowing that I was telling a supporter of mine the other day. He said, there's days where I just feel like I'm just the tip of the spear. Like there's things I don't know, there's people I don't know, there's so much out there to know that I don't know. I'm just the tip of the spear.
Hmm.
But when you know who is holding the handle, and you intimately trust that it's God holding the handle and he's the one shoving the spear where he wants to shove the spear, that that gives me a lot of comfort that if I don't have the answer right now to how this is going to work, that the solutions will come.
Hmm. I'll also put another thing when you said tip of the spear. I think again, my background, law enforcement, knowing lots of law enforcement, military that have done spec ops type stuff, and me doing, our version of Secret Service. Tip of the spear makes the biggest impact though as well.
Yeah.
You
But you
know,
got to be
there
willing to be that.
you got
And
to be
you got to know
willing
that
to
you're going to get
sacrifice in
dirty
that
and
for it.
bloody, and you might get wrecked.
Hmm.
You really might. And that's one of the first conversations I had with my wife and kids around this was this is going to take most of the money that we have in addition to whatever we get from contributions.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a very real chance that if we're successful, that this might end in physical harm to some
I
of
was gonna
us.
say it can put with the things that you're talking about. That was going to be my next question: is how is the fact that I know that you'll be aware of it, but the target that it can put on your back from how you deal with that and how you
Yep.
because it does. You're talking about taking money out of people's pockets, and people don't like money out of their pockets.
Right.
Um,
But they're taking money out of everyday Americans' pockets right
exactly,
now,
exactly.
and a lot of it,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
I
you see
mean,
it. You see it. I mean, and here's a question for you because us talking, I can tell I feel I can ask this question. Looking from this side of the world and doing a lot of the stuff that I'm watching around, like the rise and falls of superpowers and the patterns that those come, the Ray Dalio, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He talks about like the rise and fall, and we're watching. It almost feels like from this side, or at least that's where, because I'm looking at it. So, you see what you focus on, is it looks like the US is in this downfall of losing that handle. What's your thoughts on that? Now that you're looking to go into government to, I take it, try and prevent that as well. Will be
yep.
part of what you want. I may not live in America, but I am proud to be an American. Like, very much so. And I would live back there if it was easier to get my wife a green card. Um, even though we've been married for 14 years or whatever it is, 13 years, yeah, 14 years, it's still like the paperwork and everything to try and do it and like trying to get a job over there so that then she can and then she won't be like, oh, it becomes a nightmare. So I'm just like, it is. And my health care is predominantly well, again, all those things that you said, all those money things, like I don't have as much of that challenge here. There's other things that are expensive, but still very where I was getting with that, proud to be an American. What is your thoughts on that US falling from grace, I guess you could call it, and your part that you can play to, I guess, try and help prevent that, which you've kind of already talked about, but
Yeah, I think there's a legitimate concern there,
mm,
right? Like the more I learn approaching this and approaching the election, um, you know, there's a lot of Lord of the Rings fans out there,
yep.
right? And if you read the books, there's this scene where Gandalf is healing Theoden, but it's much more visceral and obvious what's going on, right? Like they talk about literally these scales falling off his eyes, and now he can see what's really happening.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've had several of those moments where you look at the fundraising side of things and where the money's coming and going from for some of the candidates and some of my opponent and you go, wow, that's not at all what it looks like on paper and what's being portrayed, right? And then
I've heard this before from other people as well.
and then somebody one of my strategists was like, oh yeah, well it's this amount of money to from this campaign fund to that campaign fund for for a chairmanship, and I'm like, what? I'm like, so it's and then just hearing a lot of the other stuff going on, and people example matters.
Mhm.
The example we set matters, right? Francis de Sales was this bishop in the middle of the Catholic and Protestant wars going on in Europe, right? And one of his favorite sayings was, you preach the gospel always and use words only if necessary.
Mm,
And our lives should be a testimony to those around us and to what we're doing and to who we are, right? And I would think that we would want our leaders um, to exemplify who we are as a country.
yeah.
That should be what we aspire to, is that we want people who are visibly good people making decisions for us and leading us. And and sadly in America, I don't know that we have that sense with a lot of our leaders, right? There's a lot of stone throwing, there's a lot of name calling, there's a lot of there's a lot of living that doesn't pass the moral standard.
Mm,
Uh, but we just sweep it under the rug because, oh well, it's okay and people in their private lives can do whatever they want, and it's like a lack of acceptance of the reality that like we are integrated people. Like if you are constantly doing things that your moral compass knows is wrong, that influences the decisions that you make in other places. Like,
Earlier on, we talked a bit about laws and murder, and how we know that we know right and wrong. Uh, Literally last night, I was watching a podcast, and my wife and I talk about it quite often. Is we feel like there is especially again looking from the outside, not just in America but worldwide, there's like a fall of democracy. There's almost as if people want democracy, but they don't want they don't want democracy at the same time. They don't want these laws. They don't want these rules put around them. They want these freedoms and flexibilities, and they want all these different things. And it does feel like there is a destruction of the cores of democracy. Are you seeing this from, obviously you running and getting further into the democracy process? Are
I
you
mean,
seeing this or
there are certain things that, like, legislation is never going to make people love one another,
no?
right? Like when we talk again, it's if it's not obvious by now that I'm a bleeding heart Christian,
You haven't been watching close
there
enough.
it is. You haven't really been paying attention, right? You've been using this as background noise to make sure you can go to sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, but people are very quick to point out the golden rule and love your neighbor. Well, like the love your neighbor part, they don't even get right, but that's the second commandment,
Mm,
right? The first one is you actually have to love God.
yeah.
Like that's the first one. You can never get to the second one and do the second one if you don't do the first one. And then the second one is actually like you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself.
That's, I think,
Well,
the biggest challenge.
that's right. Because we have this terrible notion of what it means to love yourself, right? It doesn't mean indulgence. It doesn't mean license. It doesn't mean satisfy your every inclination and whim and don't tell me what to do. It means, well, how does God love you? Well, maybe that's how you should love yourself. Maybe you should
Mm,
actually treat yourself like you care for yourself in your own best interest and not just your like worldly existence, but your eternal existence. And maybe you should actually stand up for yourself. Well, if once you learn to love yourself truly, it's at that point where you can start to really understand what it means to love your neighbor. Right?
mm,
And it took me a long time to learn that lesson because, growing up how I grew up, like there was a lot of self-loathing and self-hatred and like beliefs that I was not worthy of love and wasn't lovable and
yeah.
self-hatred, right? And I didn't realize how much that was holding me back from loving my neighbors, from truly loving my neighbors.
Mm,
And it was only where I got to a point of going, look, I just have to accept reality. Like if God made me and God doesn't make bad things, then I can't be bad
yeah.
in essence. And if God loves me, well, he's God, so he can't like be lying about it. So if he loves me, I must be able to be loved. So it doesn't matter if I feel that way or if I think that way, like that's the truth. And I have to wrap my head around that rather than saying, well, I don't care what they say. This is how I feel. Like it's that radical acceptance of what's the truth. And then once I started getting into that place of like, I do love myself and I'm trying to love myself the way that God would love me. That if Jesus were standing right next to me today, I know it's trite to go, what would Jesus do? But it's more of a, if he was standing next to me, what would he actually tell me to do? If we were
Mm,
having a conversation and I just made this mistake and I was talking to him about this mistake, what would he say to me?
yeah.
I guarantee you it wouldn't be something derogatory and you lousy, worthless piece of crap. How did you do that again? Type of language that we often find ourselves falling into, right?
Yeah.
Um, he wouldn't say that. That's not who he is. And so it's wrong of me to treat myself that way.
Yeah, you
And
need
once I
to
learned that,
mm,
how do you treat your neighbor that way? You sit
yeah.
there and rate and castigate your neighbor when you've learned that that's not how you're supposed to treat yourself. It's not how you love yourself. And you have an obligation, a firm and concrete obligation to love your neighbor as you love yourself. right? And that drives so much of community life without needing a ton of laws.
Yeah.
Somehow we've lost that, right?
I always say, I don't care what, not that I don't care. I don't, whatever somebody else believes, their actions, how they identify themselves, all of that, I'm like, I don't, and it feeds into your, love your neighbor as you love yourself. I don't, honestly, I don't mind. I don't care. But as soon as you start to harm or force that belief onto somebody else and say, you must believe this, you must do this, you must, then that starts to, then I start to go, okay, no, like I don't agree with that. And I believe that's kind of where that, if I'm using my definition, my verbalization, of the love yourself as you love your neighbor, it's the same thing. I always cherish myself on the fact that the best of my abilities, and again, I'm human. We don't always, it's not always right, and it doesn't always happen, but I always do my best to not harm somebody else. I have my beliefs and I have my thoughts, and I disagree with people, but at the same time, I'm not going to tell somebody that your belief is wrong because I believe something different. And it's that whole, again, that treating them how I'd like to be treated myself. And I remember my mother telling me this when I was very young. Treat somebody else how you want to be treated back. And it's stuck with me through my whole years, because it's like, if I want to be treated like a dickhead, then I'll treat somebody else like a dickhead. And guess what? They will treat you back like a dickhead. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it, Denny. Thanks so much. Is there anything that we should have talked about that we haven't?
Um, yeah, let's get real candid here. I would say, especially as a man, if you find yourself struggling with a lot of dark thoughts, a lot of despair, don't be ashamed to talk to people.
Mm,
Don't be ashamed to bring it to the light, because there's a lot of untruth that's hidden in those thoughts, but you can't see it because you're sitting in the dark. And the corollary to that is that when you see someone suffering, when you see someone in despair, when you see somebody really in the throes and in the fight, don't wait for them to ask.
no, reach out to him.
I know in the past I've struggled with that, and had some close calls. Um, I've had friends that have committed suicide that, like, they just they were hiding it.
Mm. We're very good at
And
hiding it too, which is the sad, scary part.
yeah, and it really comes from a misconception of how we're made. Like, we're made. Yeah, we have our will and we have our intellect, right? These higher faculties, and we have these emotions and passions.
Mm,
They're not always in order, and they're not always, they don't make good masters, but they are there to be our servants and to be part of who we are. And they are good. Like,
mm,
the essence of them is good because, again, it comes back to God made them. Like, they're good. But somewhere along the line, we get taught, you know, especially as men, we get taught, oh, feelings are for women, feelings are for wusses. You take your feelings and go put them over in the corner. We got work to do, right? Like, and to a certain extent, like, yeah, we have to manage our feelings and we have to express them and allow them to be there at the right time. Because again, like I said, they're not good masters,
no.
but they are there for a reason,
Yeah.
right? Like when we look at the etymology of emotion, right? Um, it has to do with motion, to be moved from, right?
Mm,
Like when we get anger, when we feel anger, it's because there's some injustice that we're sensing.
yeah. Or that we're
We
fighting
haven't
with
necessarily
internally.
connected it. Yeah, we haven't necessarily had the intellectual epiphany of what it is, but at a deeper core level, we know there's some injustice, or we sense an injustice, and it
Hmm.
moves us to anger, which is there to move us to correct the injustice. And the hope is that as we mature, we create some space in between that emotional response and our action for our intellect and our will to come into play and decide, well, is this accurate? What's the
And what
appropriate
and what's
response?
and what's driving it, I think, is the biggest thing as well. Because I know
Yeah.
for me personally, as a man, when I was struggling mentally wise the most, uh, it had nothing to do. Like my wife would say something, and I would just that gap was very small by that point. My wife would say something, and I'd explode at her. I remember there was one time, and we use this as an example when we're talking or when I'm talking and I'm on podcasts and things. There was a time where we came home from a dinner party at 2 a.m. We had one of those cake carrier, the little things that you put the cake in, and it's got the carrier case. We had one of those, and it was in the back seat, and we parked, and it was 2 in the morning, and we got out of the car, and I went to my wife, and I just lost it at her because she didn't go into the back seat and grab the cake and grab it to take it inside. I just lost it. Now I can tell you. It had nothing to do with the cake carrier and her not getting it. It had everything to do with the stuff that I had not processed in my brain. It was just getting coming out and exploding at that time because again, that injustice, I was dealing with an injustice that had happened years prior that was still sitting in the back of my brain that I had never actually dealt with.
So can I ask you? We
Yeah.
on my side, I still have time. Do you still have a few minutes?
I have time. I'm very conscious of your
Perfect.
of your time. So
Uh, can you tell me what you did, what methods and what things you did to work through the issues that you worked through?
yeah, so obviously we haven't talked around my story much, which I apologize on. But my story, so law enforcement had a female partner of mine get assaulted. I took it really to heart. Didn't recognize this until years after even leaving a couple years after leaving law enforcement, how much that impacted me. Then I went into was yeah. Then I went into our version of Secret Service, that my protection, and went from paranoid to hyper paranoid, hyper vigilant. Being back in the U.S., thinking that if somebody was following me to my best friend's house while I was driving my uncle's pickup to his Tacoma, so much so that I pulled over and made this early 2000s black Tahoe pull past me. Again, I can put it down to the make and model of the vehicle. That's how paranoid I was on it. But so I left that, found myself in a situation where I was steps off of cheating on my wife, and I value our relationship so much that I caught myself, went home a few days later when she came home from overseas, told her, went for a divorce. The process that I went, the key steps after that counseling, I actually did go to counseling for a second time. That counselor saved our marriage and my life, to be perfectly honest, because the first couple didn't in the middle of my career. They just kind of fed into my stuff, and I thought I resolved it. And again, it came all flowing back, even worse later on. The key things that I did, that I do still to this day, because people ask, oh, does it ever go away? The PTSD and the things. I've been having some dreams around those past, so I'm really sitting with what's causing those to come back up, and because I've dealt with them, but what's causing some of that stuff to come back up. But the key things is one, shifting my focus. We've talked about it a lot, even today. Shifting that focus, what you focus on is what you get. My next one is physiology, doing something physically active, changing that physiology while I change my focus, and then also the language that I use. But the key thing that I recognize, because I took a 3-month motorcycle trip when I left law enforcement and came back to the U.S., bought a motorcycle in Reading, rode 8,000 miles in total over about 2.5 months, went all the way to Houston and then back again. I did a big circle of the whole South. Had planned to come up your way, but it was April. Yeah, it was April, end of April,
Not a good
and
time to be on a
and it
bike up
wasn't.
north.
And I was looking at the weather. I was like, I think I started the trip, and yeah, I started the trip mid-April, and I was like, I left here on my 30th birthday, which is the 10th of April. So, and then was a couple weeks to get a bike and everything. So yeah, it was not a great time to go up that way. So I went south instead, south and east. But during that trip, I recognized a few things. One, the stepping stones or the foundation that I live by still to this day is one, you got to look after self. Two, then it's your relationship, and that's your intimate relationship. Then it's kids. I don't have kids, so this is one that I've learned from talking to a lot of people. You then look after kids. Your intimate relationship has to be before them, because otherwise you don't have the foundation to be there for them. And then from there, it's then family, the rest of your family. That does not mean blood. And then it's work and everybody else. Men, especially, are very good at flipping that pyramid upside down and putting more into work. And then kind of the other way around, itself becomes this little tiny thing, and they wonder why they're always falling over, which is what happened to me. And so that's kind of my process that I still live by there. I paraglide with my dad. I ride a motorcycle. Lately, I've been riding that motorcycle just to work because it makes me happy every time I'm on it, even when I'm just commuting through traffic. There's certain things. Going to the gym used to be a very high priority. It goes in bouts and stuff. I do find that if I do something physically active hard in the morning, I do have a much better mental state. It primes me for the day. And so I have to use that again, that language, that focus. I've got to use that to focus to keep myself driven to actually get up at 5 in the morning and go to the gym, which I struggle with early mornings, always have. Um, so yeah, so those are the kind of processes. I know there's a lot more information there. I kind of dumped all my kind of different stuff, but that those are the kind of key things, and then there's more depth that kind of goes into those. So that is my process to work on me personally.
Yeah. Did you find did you find that before you started the work that you were disconnected from the physical sensations of your emotions?
Oh, totally. So when I was at my depth of darkness, I didn't feel anything. I would ride my motorcycle so I say this, I wasn't suicidal. I wasn't planning on how to kill myself, but I didn't care if I died. And when I say that, it's because I was always searching for something, always searching for that feel. As a cop, you have to stuff your emotions away. I trained over 600 law enforcement personnel that wanted to become law enforcement on the physical side to pass the entry test, but also most importantly, the mental side to extract the performance. But that's also the same tools that I realized are the ones that get you that prevent the PTSD and the trauma from overtaking you and you getting to a numb place. I got to a numb place. I didn't feel anything. My wife remembers conversations that we had. I don't remember them because burnout a symptom is memory loss. And so I don't remember all these conversations, but she's like, we would have conversations where you're like, I feel nothing. And so I literally, from that side, I would feel nothing. And so I'd go out on my motorcycle and I'd go into corners harder than I had experience for. I'd ride faster. My best friend, who's a cop still, he and I would go ride. He was a motor cop at the time as well. And and I remember me going on, ending up on the other side of the road going around corners because I went into him too fast. And we're just lucky there was no car coming out. But again, I didn't care if that had happened. Um, because I was just trying to feel something. I still, to this day, there will be certain situations where I'll get extremely excited about something and my adrenaline will shoot up and I'll get the shakes because my body still, it's a lot better now, but it's only now that it's kind of getting a bit better and it doesn't happen as often. But there was a time where I wasn't physically active, but that adrenaline would spike. I would get, it would be like I was freezing and it's like, 90 degrees out. And I'd be sitting there with like hardcore shivers like it's actually freezing because my body just still struggles with processing adrenaline and my adrenals and all that. So yeah, definitely felt
Can I
numbness.
can I share a model that I think you'll find interesting?
Yeah, of course.
Uh, this I learned from a guy named Dr. Bob Schutz, from his books and his podcasts and whatnot. But like like you described earlier, like a lot of people get their role and then they take their identity from their mission, from their role.
Yep, I definitely identified as a cop. I don't
Yep.
anymore, but yeah.
And then a lot of your relationships or all your relationships were based around
Yep,
that mission, right?
100%.
So he looks at that and he says, look, that's mission, identity, relationships, right? And
Yep.
when the mission changes or something's wrong with the mission, you lose your sense of identity and you lose all your relationships and you're a destroyed person,
Yes.
right?
100% agree. Happened to me.
And it's not just men, right? This is also women. I mean, you think about any mom you know that is an empty nester that is like
Yep.
doesn't know what to do with herself because I'm a mom and my kids are gone and who am I? Like
Yep.
I don't know, right? So he would posit that the first thing we need is relationship, primarily a relationship with God,
Yep.
because that's how we understand who we truly are as his children.
Yep.
And then he sends us on missions. And because our relationship is rock solid and our identity comes from our relationship, it doesn't matter what the mission is. And if the mission changes, we're still solid,
Yes.
right?
I can see that.
Because we have that relationship and identity is solid. And so it's such a healthier place to live life from, to know that like I am who I am no matter what mission I'm called to do.
Yes.
And so it's cool to see that you've kind of made that journey, that
Yeah, so I helped a lot of people.
you're in the process of it.
I recognize the version of that. Mine's not so much God. Mine is spiritual, but mine is that we are here for a specific purpose, which can that connection with the spirit. Mine is to create, and I recognize this. It stems all the way back from childhood, and then has been reconcreted in. I've done neurolinguistic programming, like trainings and that. Uh, and mine is to create less pain for myself and others uh, through helping myself and others become the best version of ourselves. And so when I live in that, whatever the mission is or the actions that I'm doing, as long as they are serving that, I'm whole. And again, it starts with myself, then others, because if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after others. Um, to that, yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah. Well, awesome.
Well, thanks, Denny. I do have a closing tradition. I do ask the same question to everybody. I know that you're time sensitive. I'll ask it now. If you could hand every man on the planet a single insight that would unlock his potential to lead, love, and live with purpose, what would you tell him?
Make time every day to listen to God.
I love it.
That's the short version,
The
right? I
short, the
mean,
short,
we can extrapolate, but the truth is that if we're not listening to God, we don't have much chance of following His will and His role for us. And it's really hard to serve the community and serve people when you don't have that anchor,
Hmm,
when you don't have that rock that you're building your life around. And the
yeah,
only way to stay connected to that rock is through that period of contemplation, where you listen every day.
yeah.
You allow him space to, like, uh, Augustine of Hippo in the 300s said, like, the God who made you without you will not save you without you,
Hmm,
right? Like, God is there waiting for us to just create space. The universe wants to pour itself into us and see us do great things, right? He wants us to go on this amazing adventure and to do more than we ever dreamed possible, but he wants us to say yes to it.
we have to open the space and open that void for it to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I don't call it God. I call it, spiritual. But same exact concept. I am fully agree with that. And I've had moments which, again, we could talk for hours longer about all these different things. It's been great talking to you, Denny. Okay, so Denny, how do people support you? How do people, if donate to you? What is it that you need,
If they go to denny4senate.com,
Denny, for Senate?
they will find my webpage. They'll find information on how to donate, how to help. Um, and then if they really want to know more about me, then they can pick up my book, Blue Collar Blessed, which is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's a deep dive into how I got here.
Excellent. I love it. I'll put the links down in the description, wherever people are watching or listening to this. I'll put it
Yeah.
in the description so that they're there so they can do it. Is there any deadlines when it comes to that, the donation side of things, just in case somebody's listening to this in the future?
Yep. The primary is May 19th, 2026.
Ooh, it's
So
not far away.
it's not far away. So it's it is the biggest, highest stakes game of chicken I've ever played in my life.
Well, Denny, after our short conversation, I do wish you the best of luck with that. It sounds like you're gonna do some great stuff. I'm fully on board with the things that we've talked about today, around that, finding out where all that money's going and try and give it to the right places instead of it going to wherever it's going at the moment, causing more and more debt for America. The last thing I want to see is America to fall from the power, the position that they're in. But I would like, as we've talked about, I would like to see some things change as well because I do believe that it has. I believe it's lost its path. It's gotten very very confused in some ways. and it's jumping all over the place the last kind of couple decades, personally, is from what I see. But any last words before we close out, Denny?
Oh, God bless you and keep up the good work.
Appreciate it. You as well. And I'm sure we will talk very soon. Remember, everybody, I say this every time, and you probably have clicked off by now, but if you're still here, thank you. Make sure you like, subscribe, but most importantly, share this with somebody that resonated with you during this time, because I guarantee that that energetic connection they will appreciate you for it, and they will thank you for it. So just make sure you share that with them so that they can get the insight that you felt they possibly needed at that time. So, without further ado, thank you very much. Remember, train hard, test easy. That is my motto, both physically and mentally, so that we are all better people and keep on growing. Till next time, love you all and stay safe.
Thank you.